you know, how this little thing that's running around called the virus, you
I
know.
feel like you're living in a horror movie. Or like the Hunger Games or
What's
something.
even worse?
Like living in a comedy,
Really?
you know, with everybody buying up toilet paper, and I mean, it just
Let me, let's call this meeting to order. This is, obviously, we're breaking new ground, so unfortunately, I hope this is the last of doing this, but this may be the first. But I think everyone knows why we're doing this, and a very serious situation we face in this state and in this country and this world with coronavirus. Having said that, I'm going to open up first. We're going to do a roll call vote. And so Kristen will do the roll call. But prior to saying that, after we get through the roll call, we will have several votes during this meeting. And I will be asking for the yeas and nays. And if anybody has a nay, state it, because we're going to not go through the roll call each time, since we have 4 votes, or 3 or 4 votes after the roll call. So everyone bear with us, but we're going to start with the roll call by congressional district. So if you will, let your presence be known where we know that we have a quorum. With that, Kristen's going to start the roll call.
Okay, I'm going to go down the line by congressional district, starting with Ann Purcell.
Here.
Johnny Floyd.
Here.
Lynn Westmoreland. Robert Brown.
Present.
Stacy King. Kevin Abel.
Here.
Rudy Bowen.
Here.
Emily Dunn. Jamie Boswell.
Here.
Jeff Lewis.
Here.
Don Grantham.
Here.
Dana Lemon.
Conference call hit down too, so I just want to make sure.
Jerry Sharon.
Here.
How many do we have present?
That's okay, buddy. You did everything you could, and we all did.
We have 11.
We have 11 present, if you will, 9 on the phone. Ms. Key is here with me, 2 in attendance in person. So we have 11 members present. With that, I'm going to ask people in the room to stand for the invocation and pledge, and if y'all can follow along on your telephones. Dear God, please place your healing hand on all the members present here today. Place your healing hand on all those individuals who are sick with this terrible disease, wherever they may be in this entire world. Help us get through this incredible crisis and come out on the better side. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance. I pledge to the flag of the United States of America. To the republic,
One nation.
God, liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Oh, if you will, please, everybody that's calling in, if you would put your phone on mute, we're hearing some background noise, which becomes a problem at some point. So please, if you would do that now, that would be very helpful. With that, I would just say welcome to the board meeting again, and we're going to jump into this and try to go through this as quick as possible. And we will be following up with other information after this meeting. But let us start with the approval of the minutes. If I can have a motion. Ms. Key is moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
If you will, state your name, who the second was from.
This is Robert Brown.
Robert Brown with a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Again, mute your phone, if you will. Put your phone, please, on mute. We can hear the background noise. But the minutes have been approved by unanimous vote. With that, I believe first up is Albert Shelby, if you will, for the report on the April letting.
So good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioner, and members of the board. I'm here to present the projects the department is proposing to advertise for the April 2020 letting. So the first slide is about presenting, before we present April, here are the FY 2020 results so far. We have led a total of 218 projects in FY 2020. This chart shows the number of projects by improvement type. The value of these 218 projects is over $674 million through the February 2020 bid awards, with 193 GDOT let projects worth approximately $533 million and 25 local let projects worth $141 million. Next page. This chart shows the dollar amount distribution by improvement type, with maintenance, bridge, and road projects making up the bulk of those improvement types. Next page. Here are the results of the February 2020 letting. Of the 23 let contracts presented to the board, all were awarded. We're on page 5. Now I'm going to discuss the projects in the April 2020 letting. We have a total of 27 projects, which are 24 GDOT let projects and 3 local let projects. The next 2 slides will list the 22 non-TIA projects arranged by congressional district. It's page 6 and page 7. Page 8, as you can see with this slide, which is a map, we are letting a variety of projects throughout the state to address capacity, maintenance, and safety issues. Page 9. This first project is the resurfacing of State Route 25 from the Bryan County line to I-516 in Chatham County for a distance of 12.6 miles. This section was last repaved in 2007, 13 years ago. This is a good example of our continuing efforts to maintain our existing infrastructure. The next highlighted project is the replacement of the structurally deficient bridge on Brock Road, which is also County Road 351, over Reedy Creek. The existing bridge was constructed in 1930, 90 years ago. This next slide shows a ground view of the bridge to be replaced. The next slide is a highlighted project that will provide a pedestrian bridge at the existing Rogers Bridge at the Chattahoochee River. This project is a collaborative effort of the cities of Duluth and Johns Creek.
Now attending. Emily?
The original bridge was constructed in 1912 and used until the late 1970s. The obsolete bridge is now rapidly decaying. Due to the irreparable condition of the existing bridge, an in-kind replacement has been recommended as a result of stakeholder and public meetings. Once the project is complete, there will be a pedestrian connection between Johns Creek's future Cauley Creek Park, Duluth's Rogers Bridge Park, and Gwinnett's trail system. This project will allow greater access to public spaces and parkland along the river, access to the Western Gwinnett Bikeway, and provide multi-jurisdictional bicycle and pedestrian connectivity to Fulton and Gwinnett counties as well as the surrounding communities. This next slide is the replacement of the structurally deficient bridge on Funston-Sale City Road, which is also County Road 481, which is over Bridge Creek in Colquitt County. The existing bridge was constructed in 1958, 62 years ago. This next slide shows a ground view of the bridge to be replaced. Next is the resurfacing of State Route 120 from the Whitlock Avenue to State Route 3, which is US 41 in Cobb County, for a distance of 2.5 miles. This section was last repaved in 2011, 9 years ago. The next slide shows the reconstruction of State Route 360 from a 2-lane facility to a 4-lane facility. This project will include 2 12-foot lanes in each direction, separated by a 20-foot raised median with curb and gutter and 5-foot sidewalks on both sides. The project is approximately 5.9 miles and is a good example of our continuing efforts to provide additional capacity in congested areas throughout the state. The next slide is the widening and reconstruction of US 1 State Route 4 from Plant Hatch in Appling County to State Route 56 in Toombs County. The project will widen an 8.5-mile corridor from 2 lanes to 4 lanes as part of the Governor's Road Improvement Program known as GRIP. This project will use a blend of TIA funds and HB 170 funds for construction. The next slide is the replacement of the existing T intersection at State Route 136 and State Route 136 connector with a roundabout. The intersection of State Route 136 and LJ Road will be realigned on new location with a roundabout at the intersection. Next, I'm going to discuss the projects that GDOT will be letting as part of the TIA program. The next slide shows the 5 TIA projects located in the southern Georgia TIA region. The next slide is the first project, which is a resurfacing package in the city of Patterson consisting of 39 city streets for a total mileage of 10.77 miles and a $2.75 million TIA investment. The next slide resurfaces Harvey Vickers Road over US 441 to State Route 135 for 2.39 miles and a $900,000 investment. The next slide is a project that resurfaces Ray Road from State Route 268 to Old Coffee Road for 2.49 miles and a $615,000 investment. And the last slide is the resurfacing of Warren County Road, which is Warren Carter Road, which is also Hillcrest Road from State Route 32 to State Route 206 for 2.69 miles, investing $950,000. And the next slide is the final TIA project, which resurfaces North Liberty Street from State Route 32 to north of Peachtree Road for 1.25 miles and a $231,000 investment. So we have 27 projects proposed for the April 2020 letting. This chart shows the distribution by improvement types. The next slide shows the estimate of the projects in April 2020 letting of approximately $212.9 million. This chart shows the dollar amount distribution by improvement type. So in conclusion, we are proposing to advertise 27 projects, which are 24 GDOT contracts. Mr. Chair and members of the board, we are presenting this for your consideration for approval.
Thank you, Albert, for
Make a
that
motion.
report. Do I have any questions from any members of the board? Are there any questions from members of the board on the telephone? Hearing none, I need a motion to,
So moved, Ann Purcell.
need a second.
Don.
Second from
Second,
Don
Gary
Grantham,
Sherrick.
motion from Ann Purcell. All in favor, say
Second.
aye.
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 Any opposition?
Aye.
All I've heard so far is yays. Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes and the projects for the April letting have been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Albert. Appreciate that report. We're considering some people are absent. We're going to call on the commissioner to do the approval of the revisions of construction work. That will be followed by a approval of the board, and then we'll go into the commissioner's report after that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, it's a pleasure to be with you this morning. Last month, Paul Tanner presented to the board 2 projects to be added to the construction work program. So if on your slide deck, slide 33 is where we are, if you want to flip to 33. A project in Congressional District 6 and a project in Congressional District 12 being added to the construction work program. So it was presented to you last month, so we would need your favorable approval to add that to the construction and work program. Mr. Chair, if you could see if you can move that, please.
Any questions from members of the board regarding the approval of the revisions of the construction work program that's been presented by the commissioner? Hearing no questions, I need a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chairman, Don.
Don has moved to approve. Second. Got a
Second, Ann Purcell.
Well, I have a second. Ann, thank you very much, Annie, but Stacy beat you to it. So I have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
I'll slow down, my eyes keep coming in. Sorry, my mic wasn't on. So we have a motion and we have a second, and everybody has moved, so I heard no opposition, so the approval of the revision construction work program has passed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me now present on slide 34, 35, and 36 are for your information and will come before you next month to again request favorable approval to the construction work program. These are 21 bridges. There are 20 additions and 1 deletion. The deletion is 1 bridge in Coweta County, and it's being taken care of elsewise, but again, this shows you a strong investment in the state of good repair by replacing bridges. And as you can see, this is a mix of a lot of mainly state routes, but a few county bridges as well being added to the program. So I guess the majority of these are all state routes except for 1 or 2. So this is for your information, and then we'll be back next month before you to seek your favorable consideration of these projects to be added to the construction work program. And in this business segment too, I might add, the reason I'm pinch hitting, Paul Tanner will be retiring and is out on leave now, so we will be working to fill his position as well.
Thank you.
With that, Mr. Chair, I'll be glad to move into the Commissioner's report at this time. And if you'll flip over to about page 38 is where we'll begin in your slide deck. And as always, we'll start with the state fund collections for February 2020, that is. Collections totaled $171.84 million. The breakdown of that was $154.7 million in excise, $17.07 million in fees. That brings fiscal year to date totals to $1.364 billion. The break is $1.236 billion in excise and $128.5 million in fees. So this comparison for this time to last year, for February, we're tracking at $4.29 million ahead. So that's a good trend. Now let me move into our employment data. We are right now staffed at 3,939 full-time staff, 75 maintenance temporary staff. Last month, we hired 23 employees, promoted 9 employees, and separated 56 employees for one reason or another. Also, under the employment update, I'd like to give you notice that Kelvin Mullins has been selected to be the District 1 District Engineer. Kelvin possesses a Bachelor's of Science degree in Civil Engineering Technology from Georgia Southern University. He began his career in District 1 in Athens area office in construction. Kelvin's had many jobs over his career, including Assistant Area Engineer in Construction, District State Aid Coordinator, the Transportation Enhancement Program Manager, a Design Build Project Manager in the Office of Innovative Delivery, also the Project Manager in the TIA office, and also became the Administrator of the TIA office, and most recently serves as the Local Grants Administrator and a Technical Assistant to the Deputy Commissioner. So we're proud for Kelvin. We'll be taking over the reins immediately in District 1, and so look for your usual and customary support of our district engineers, and so congratulates Kelvin when you maybe virtually see him or talk to him. So I'm not sure when you'll see him in person.
Commissioner Jamie Boswell, I want to congratulate Kelvin, and I look forward to working with him.
Thank you, Mr. Boswell. All right, let me move forward now to the next agenda item is an update of our professional services procurement. And last month, we procured 126 contracts valued at $27.6 million for professional services in engineering design, right-of-way, or geotechnical type awards. That brings our year-to-date awards to 991, so just short of 1,000 by this time, resulting in about a $403.6 million contract value. So again, all the work it takes to get to this point to let projects. It's a lot of work, and so our procurement teams, our subject matter experts do a lot of work to advance the program. So now let me move into some highlights since the last time we were together. Our projects open to traffic, and so you usually get pictures here of projects that we've opened to traffic. So in the days of radio, you had to use your imagination. So I'm going to ask that all of you use your imagination, because these projects I'm going to talk about are the best projects you'd ever see. You just can't imagine how beautiful these projects are. So use your imagination. So we'll start in Congressional District 2 in Taylor County, which is GDOT District 3, a capital maintenance investment of right at 14 miles of milling and resurfacing on US 19, which is also State Route 3, beginning at State Route 96, going all the way up to the Upson County line. The contractor was Robinson Paving Company, opened or finished up in February 15th. It represents an $8 million capital maintenance investment in Taylor County, and the project was completed ahead of schedule and under budget. Now moving into Congressional District 3 in Meriwether County, another capital maintenance investment by District 3. About 13 miles of milling and resurfacing, and also single surface treatment on State Route 100, beginning at US 27 and extending to the Troup County line. The contractor for this project was C.W. Matthews Contracting Company. Finished up February 6th, represents a $4.2 million investment, and this project was also completed ahead of schedule and under budget. Pardon me. Moving into Congressional District 4 and Congressional District 7, DeKalb and Gwinnett counties, GDOT District 7, are safety upgrades. And these safety upgrades include traffic signal equipment upgrades and for pedestrian accommodations at 9 locations on State Route 8 and State Route 236. The contractor was R.J. Haney and Associates. Finished up on February 28th. A $1.8 million safety investment, and this project was completed on budget. Moving into Congressional District 8, Pulaski County, GDOT District 3, a capital bridge investment, which is replacing 2 dual bridges on State Route 26 over the Old Mulgee River right in Hawkinsville. Also included 1.48 miles of construction of the approaches. The contractor for this was Georgia Bridge and Concrete. Completed and opened of traffic on February 4th, represented a $16.2 million capital bridge investment. This project was completed ahead of schedule and under budget. And I remind the board, in the milepost, there was an article about a gentleman that came out and visited, elderly gentleman who came out and visited this site and was there when the first bridges were built. And so, were not the first bridges. In 1959, the bridges that these replaced were built in 1959. So great article there and a great story, personal touch story. So let's move into Congressional District 9 to Elbert County, GDOT District 1, another capital maintenance investment of 4 miles of milling and resurfacing on State Route 17, beginning north of Fairfax Circle there in Elberton and heading west to State Route 1772 intersection. Contractor was E.R. Snell Contractor. Last time this was resurfaced was 2005, so we're getting back to a good cycle. And this represents a $2.1 million capital maintenance investment, and this project was completed under budget. The next project is in Congressional District 12 in Evans County, GDOT District 5, and it's a TIA investment from the heart of Georgia, Altamaha region. This project included construction of a bridge replacement in the approaches on Daisy Neville's Highway over the Canoochee River. The contractor was The Industrial Company. This bridge was also built in 1959, and that was replaced, and it was open to traffic on February 21st, representing a $4.1 million TIA investment. So that's awesome to see those TIA dollars being used on things like that. The project was completed under budget as well. So Kenneth Franks always likes those TIA under budget projects. Now, let me move into the next slide, which is 39, and highlight a few great things. We always like to highlight the professional staff that we have here at the department. And we have 4 individuals, you can see their names on the slide there, on slide 39, that have successfully passed their professional engineering exam. A little easy 8-hour exam. After you have enough experience and education, you're able to sit for this exam. So certainly are proud of Robert Rogers, who works in the Office of Construction, Nathan Wilson, who works in bridge design, Tyler Whaley, it says Michael, but Whaley is his official name, but he goes by Tyler, works in our roadway design office, and Austin Wang works up in District 6 in the traffic operations office. So again, congratulations to these individuals for pursuing their professional credentials, which is an awesome thing. So certainly wanted to highlight that. Let's move into the let me move in now, Mr. Chairman and ladies and gentlemen of the board, to talk about a serious issue with COVID-19 and give you an update of what's going on here at the Department of Transportation. And we really have encouraged much teleworking as possible in our offices. In fact, we have over 1,120 people now teleworking across the state on some basis. And we've also encouraged a lot more flexible work hours and days due to the effects of school being out as well. So in addition, we have some offices that have staggered their schedule, so they reduce the amount of overlap of staff at work at any one time, and also gives us the ability to do a little more social distancing. Also, we have the same expectations for our consultant partners who are working to deliver projects as well. A lot of the firms are doing the same practices as should be, so we expect that as well. For those who cannot readily telework, we continue to stress that if you don't feel well, don't come in, first and foremost, and all the hygiene things of washing your hands, etc., and covering your cough and sneeze. And also ask folks to spread out in the maintenance headquarters and also in our construction field offices and our construction offices, so that we are, again, practicing the best practices from the CDC and the Department of Public Health. In addition, all our visitor centers and rest areas remain open for restroom access, and we've increased our cleaning and janitorial services there at the visitor centers and rest areas for the bathroom facilities. So we certainly are, again, keeping Georgia open for business the best we can. So you know as well, we have had employees aiding with GEMA and the Department of Public Health and transport of equipment and supplies, and we anticipate to continue to do that. And yesterday we had a call with the Georgia Highway Contractors Association to discuss their efforts to protect their workforce while we still work on construction projects across the state. And they're actually doing the same recommended approaches and practices from the CDC and public health. So certainly interested in. I will note that later today we will have a call with the AASHTO to discuss the COVID-19 initiatives and efforts for all the states. And to date, only one state has canceled construction projects to stop work in construction and maintenance, and that's Pennsylvania. So I can tell you that I've had a lot of dialogue back and forth with many of the AASHTO states, and we are all operating very similarly. Everybody's just trying to distance, telework as much as possible, and of course best practices in health and hygiene. So we'll have that teleconference today and hear more about what other states are doing, and certainly still any good ideas they have. Also, just to let you know, we are seeing reductions in rural and small urban transit providers as well, as ridership falls way off, and then the other part of this being able to social distance on transit facilities. And that's we're keeping track of that, so we'll see how that works. Obviously, MARTA has been first and out front too, doing obviously additional cleanings and sanitizing of their fleets and their trains, and we're certainly tracking with them as well, and again trying to space people out, and but we are seeing reductions in ridership as well. So on the next slide, on slide 41, we're doing even additional work in messaging. You know, in the past couple of months, we've had a little humorous approach to how we use our our changeable message signs, but in partnership with the governor's office and GEMA, we are trying to message COVID-19 messages, and we'll continue to do that. And we certainly appreciate Federal Highway Administration's flexibility to use our changeable message signs for this situation. So, like I said, last month or so, we made light of how to use these signs to focus on safety, but these signs also play a critical role for this public health situation that we're in now. So, as I mentioned before, not only is transit ridership down, on this next slide, which is slide 42, is a lot of, looks like speedometers, but a lot of data talking about what the impact to traffic volumes are. And this is a aggregation of all the main interstates in metro Atlanta. And what we're seeing across the board is about a 20 to 40% reduction in traffic volumes at this time. And so we're tracking this on a daily basis and a weekly basis as well to try to understand what volumes are. So we'll just keep an eye on this, and I'll try to provide you with some updates along the way as we continue to track traffic volumes, which is a great sign that people are heeding the messaging of, staying home and taking care of things at home. So seeing these traffic volumes off. So that is a good indicator, and we're sharing this with the governor's team as well, so that they have this information. All right, so let me move into the next topics, which are slides 43 through 46 in your handout, and give you an update about the other state of emergency that we're in, and that was resulting from the flooding earlier this month. And as you recall, the governor has issued a state of emergency for all counties basically south of I-20. And we've been in close coordination with GEMA and Homeland Security because of this. Based on the current damage estimates across Georgia, it appears this event may be FEMA eligible. We are aware of at least 50 counties with funding requests that exceed the dollar threshold, which is about $15 million, that would trigger the FEMA requirement. So under this declaration, we also immediately provided manpower, equipment, and materials to help in 6 counties. In those 6 counties, we had 38 employees, 22 dump trucks, 6 pieces of equipment, and over 190 pieces of traffic control, being road closed barricades, road closed signs, or barrels and cones, for these counties to utilize while their roads were being impacted by flooding or being closed. The largest impact that GDOT has had was the washout on State Route 120 in Wilcox County. This is located just north of Rebecca and South Rochelle area. And I was very proud to say that our District 4 team started work and even worked last weekend to get underway with repairing that. If you advance the next slide, you can see some of the work going on there. And what they have to do is basically rebuild about 1,000 feet of road, install 4 60-inch pipes, so that's 5-foot diameter pipes, so those are large pipes, and rebuild this. Fortunately, there's a detour that's not too far away and a very sparse residential area as well. So we'll be working on this now for a while to get this reopened, and we hope for continued dry weather. In addition to the flooding update, we have 4 2-man FEMA assessment teams that will be inspecting 33 counties over next week itself. So we're trying to help GEMA as well as FEMA in doing some early assessments due to their challenges of working on COVID-19 issues as well. So I just remind each board member, should you continue to get a request for help due to flooding in the declared areas, all counties below I-20, to have them reach out through their emergency management agency to GEMA to make those requests, because we must process them through there before the department provides aid and help. And so if you have any questions on that, please feel free to call me or Mike Dover if you've got county requests that may continue to be trickling in. But it's very important, again, that they go through GEMA so we can get a total assessment in that. On the next two slides, I'm proud to announce that we have a new Hero facility up in Cobb County, and this is part of our expansion initiative. This part of the effort is basically to having Heroes closer to where they're working, and so this certainly right up off I-75 in the Marietta area, off Barnes Mill Road. We are situated very closely to I-75 and to the Northwest Corridor, where we will have 40 master operators that will be working on the express lane based, and we'll also have 2 teams that work in the general purpose lanes on I-75 and 575 and the top end of the perimeter based out of this as well. So when those 2 teams are fully staffed with the another 20 operators, we'll have basically 60 operators based out of this facility, again, 24/7, working around the clock. And also we'll announce that we're getting very close, or the Georgia State Patrol is getting very close to open their new facility in Gwinnett County at the I-85-985 split, again, where we will co-locate with them to have Heroes up in Gwinnett County to work on the express lanes and along 85 and also the reaches in the Northeast metro area. So again, very glad to have these ready and nearing open. The pictures you see on the on your slide deck obviously shows there's a little more work to be done, but we're about ready to get underway. So with this, so Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen on the board, that concludes my report of this segment. But a little differently than normal, we're going to have some updates of other items. We're going to have Angela Whitworth, our treasurer, provide you a budget update as we've gone through this legislative session. I'm going to stand in and help with the legislative update. And then finally, we'll have Patrick Allen, our state utilities engineer, to provide you a briefing on utility permitting. So with that, I'll field any questions or comments before we have Angela come up and provide you a budget update.
Thank you, Commissioner, for that report and the great update on all the many happenings to this department, and assume that you will continue to keep us updated on COVID-19 and the impact on this department and on revenues, et cetera. And we appreciate all you do and everybody in this department, and we really appreciate their tolerance of this situation as we try to work through it as a team, as we always do. And we also wish Kelvin all the best. We hate to see him go. He did a great job for us in his most recent role with LMIG funds, and we wish him the best. We will say I've already cautioned him very closely about Jamie Boswell, so he's been prepped on what he's facing as he goes to district engineer. You knew I couldn't get through one meeting without a shot at him, but I do appreciate it. I can tell you, coming up yesterday, the rest areas were crowded, and interestingly enough, I was obviously driving for 3.5 hours, 4 hours. I was looking at tags. Most of them were out of state, not as many in-state traveling, so sort of interesting. I'm assuming spring break going back home. But with that, any questions from the board for the commissioner on his report before we move forward?
Yeah, it's Kevin Abel here. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, Commissioner, with respect to the drastic reductions in traffic and naturally the drastic reductions in taxes, at what point does the department start looking at how this is going to impact budget and obviously work that can be done?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Abel. Absolutely, that's something that we are tracking, and this traffic volume data that we are tracking helps to do a correlation to potential impacts of revenue. And so we are actually will be doing an analysis. We need to get through this first week and to see sort of what the overall traffic volumes are looking like. What we showed you in that slide is really the morning rush hour, which is sort of indicative of how many people get out and about. But we really need to watch that and see how this trend continues, not only this week, but certainly into next week, as I would say more normalcy, a new normalcy would present itself. So, yeah, we'll be tracking that. Angela probably can talk a little bit about her section in the budget as well. for this budget year, we are good. It will probably be more of an effect of what the impacts could be for next budget year being FY '21. Yeah, certainly need to track, and we'll try to keep you all updated of what those traffic numbers look like, which have a correlation. And obviously, we'll know next month what the impact of this month will be from the Department of Revenue. So we'll be tracking that.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? I want to give everybody an opportunity to. Hearing no other questions, we'll move on to, I guess we'll go with Angela, and then Commissioner, you can come back up and give Josh's report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chairman, members of the board virtually, members of the board here. Thank you for coming to you today to present the amended and the FY '21 budget recommendations thus far. If you will turn to page 51 in your handout, this is the how the amended 20 budget changes have occurred. The amended budget was signed by the governor earlier this week, so it's gone into effect. The House and the Senate went along with the governor's recommendation. The only change that occurred was in conference committee, the $3 million to fund the Middle Georgia Regional Airport expansion for the runway expansion. Started out in the House, Senate made some changes, and finally in conference, the conference committee added $3 million in state general funds for the expansion of the Middle Georgia Regional Airport expansion, runway expansion. So those were the 20 changes. Moving into 21 on page 52, I'm going to highlight the changes in the fee component. I know in the past couple of months I've went over the amended and the fiscal year 21 budget recommendation. I'm going to show you what the changes were, and on the fees that were originally leaving the department. In the governor's recommendation, the fees and state general funds total $211,439,539. You'll see a change to the House recommendation of an additional $62,000. That was for the merit-based pay adjustment that the House included for fiscal year 21 for the intermodal program. So that's the change there. In Department of Community Affairs, currently right now, you can see where we're funding for the Georgia Regional Transportation Authority and the Atlanta Transit Link Authority. Those items did stay. However, in the governor's recommendation, the recommendation was to move $15.8 million out of and fees into public safety's budget to fund the motor carrier division. The House did not go along with that recommendation, and they redirected those funds back into capital constructions program. And you'll see that highlighted in the next couple of slides that I present to you. On slide 53, this is the chart, and I will do a deeper dive on the chart on the next slide, but I wanted to kind of show you here the items in red were the items that originally were the governor's recommendation, and you can see the changes in the numbers that the House has made in a lot of these. The capital projects program, which basically consists of capital construction and capital maintenance in the local roads admin program. That program now is roughly 50% of our overall budget. In general operations, this program entails the administrative aspect of it, like your accounting, your budget office, HR, legal, audits, IT. It includes the construction admin office as well, design, right-of-way, environmental, materials and testing. It also encompasses data collections. They basically collect and report on crash and accident data, road and traffic data. The Office of Planning is embedded in general operations, as well as traffic management, which consists of your HERO, ITS, inspections, and like traffic signal repairs. LMIG stayed the same because the overall budget did not change. Routine maintenance, you'll see an increase in roughly in routine maintenance. Over half of that budget is outsourced through our ITBs, as the commissioner has highlighted, previously in his presentations that he's done. Payments to CERTA has gone down $10 million. I will highlight that in a reduction in their operations cost. And then there's been a change in intermodal due to the Sapelo Island Ferry redirection, and then in general obligation debt, it stayed the same. If you move into slide 54, I will get into the specific detail on all of the programs. In capital construction, you can see an increase in the House recommendation over the governor's. This was due to the redirection of the, in public safety's budget, the motor carrier division. They redirected those fees that were originally going into DPS's budget back into the department's budget, and they've allocated those in capital construction. In capital maintenance, you'll see a reduction of $1.3 million. This is a combination of several things. One of them being, previously, y'all remember the Sapelo Island Ferry was being included in Aramota's budget. Those funds were a portion of those funds were redirected up to capital maintenance, and the remaining of the funds were utilized in order to annualize the merit pay adjustment from July of 2019, and to show the merit pay adjustment that the House is wanting to recommend for fiscal year 21. If you'll look down, LMIG has not changed, local roads admin has not changed. And then if you look at the $10 million in payments to CERTA, that $10 million that was no longer needed in operations was being redirected to various programs, and those programs are highlighted here as being construction admin. You'll see the increase in construction admin, data collections, departmental admin, a portion of intermodal, planning, routine maintenance, and traffic management. Those funds were all redirected to be utilized toward either the merit pay adjustment to annualize the merit pay adjustment from July 1 of 19, and to include the merit pay adjustment that will be given that they're recommending for FY 21. The change in intermodal is their $62.9 million that was left of the $500,000 redirection in that program. Due to the merit adjustment for 21, and then the remainder of those funds were redirected to capital maintenance. In the next slide, the governor recommended $50 million in bonds to be utilized. Roughly, that gives the department the ability to advance 12 to 15 state bridges throughout the state, which allows us the ability to use the other funds to target our local bridges. The House went along with the governor's recommendation. With this $50 million, along with the funding from 16 through 19, we've previously been able to do, we're fastly approaching being able to do a little bit under 100 bridges statewide. That concludes the budget recommendation so far through the House. It's moved on to the Senate. Currently, right now, session, they have recessed currently. The commissioner can probably talk a little bit more about when, in the legislative report that Josh has prepared about that. The question that came up, will be tracking revenue collections, analyzing those, trying to look what the impact will be to the department. Any kind of impact that we incur will be adjusted in the amended budget, depending on if they have time now. If they see any real huge change, the ability, they may be able to adjust it now during the regular cycle. If not, we will clearly be tracking this in the months to come to see how the impact will do, and we can make any necessary adjustments in the amended.
All right. Angela, thank you for that report. With the session in limbo right now, I know it's unusual times. So anyway, thank you for where we are, for your report, where we are presently in the budget. And any questions from members of the board for Angela? I want to give you time if there's any questions, ask now, or you can wait, hold them if you want, for the commissioner is going to be up next on legislative. He can field them as well as Angela and come back up. So why don't we go ahead and move ahead, and Commissioner McMurray will come back up. Angela, thank you for your report. we will now move into a legislative update with Pitch Hitter.
All righty, thank you, Mr. Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the board. And I would add on to what Angela said to reaffirm the point that the fiscal year amended 20 budget has been signed by the governor and implemented. If you recall, that did have the additional 100 million asked for in special session, so that's very important. So that did move forward. So let me give you a little bit of overview. On slide 57 is where we are. There's a calendar of events. Obviously, that calendar of events is on hold. HR 1473 set the calendar with sine die April 2nd, but also did the suspension of session. And then, of course, a special session was called back on Monday, March 16th, to address the issues with the state of emergency that was declared by the governor. So that was basically we got through 29 days, and then the 1 day of special session coming back over. So a little bit of highlights of what happened on crossover day, and I know Josh has been sharing with you email updates, so I'll try to just summarize those. HB 105 was a vehicle that was really focused on Hurricane Michael tax relief, but also added to that was the rideshare fee hotel heavy vehicle impact fee session that the House further amended and the Senate passed that version of HB 105. The HB 105 is really language to implement a new fee on ride shares. That, if you remember, that was originally in last year's HB 511, either a 25-cent shared ride excise fee or a 50-cent per ride excise fee for rideshare services. In HB 105, that is put in there now, and it also dedicates that revenue from those fees, which is estimated somewhere between $20 and $40 million, for transit purposes. And this broadly defined what those transit purposes are, would be to the Atlanta Transit Link Authority, GDOT, or any transit provider receiving federal funds. So that is a positive note that there's a additional or new revenue source that would support transit across the state of Georgia. So that is a very positive thing. Included in that bill were also some provisions that may allow up to 10% of the fee component, being hotel fee or heavy vehicle fee, to be dedicated to transit, but more, I think, implicitly said that 90% has to be going back to the really legislative intent of HB 170, which was to advance transportation projects and state of good repair for the state. So those are all favorable things in those tenets. Now, under HB 105, it has to be passed by the Senate and is amended by the House prior to going to the governor for his signature. And that didn't happen in the session. The rideshare fees outlined in HB 105 would supersede what was done in what was HB 276, which the governor has already signed this year, which was the marketplace facilitator law that also included rideshares. So barring something happening with an additional legislative action before April 1st, the rideshare companies will have to remit the marketplace facilitator part of that, which was a sales tax. So we'll be seeing what was happening and keep an eye on that from HB 105 point of view. So either way, I think it's, it seems to be a piece of legislation that is good because of the focus on increased investment in transit. Pardon me. HB 1098 and HR 1300 were part of our sort of housekeeping bills, if you will. HB 1098 dealt with GDOT's annual statutory update, and this really, what it did was cleaned up, and it did pass, by the way, let me say that, it did cross over. It cleaned up and aligned sort of state and federal planning requirements that weren't in sync with each other. And those two planning requirements was the statewide transportation plan, which is a federal regulation that requires state to have a multimodal, long-range transportation plan that maintains at least a 20-year horizon window, and the SWTP, as we called it, It really looks at current and future performance of all transportation modes in the state and also looks at linkages between those modes. So it's truly a multimodal approach. Now, the other thing that we had in state law that wasn't in sync was the SSTP, which was part of the 2009 session, and it created the SSTP, which serves as our official intermodal comprehensive physically constrained transportation plan, which was also on the 20-year horizon. They just were not in sync with each other. So all we were trying to do is get these in sync so our planning office doesn't have to do a report one year that's basically the duplicate report the next year and report differently. So very good cleanup there, so we're glad that moved forward. Also in House Resolution 1300, this is dealing with two property transfers to DNR because they were part of historical or heritage preserves. One of those is a project down in Glenn County for US 17. There was about 6 acres of impact to DNR property that's in a heritage preserve. So we have to take this action such that transfer can happen. The other project was up in Murray County on State Route 52 alternate, a 0.194 acre impact. But so that resolution passed. This gives us the ability to work with our partners over at DNR and such that we can advance those projects. So let me give you update on some other key legislation, starting with HB 511. As you remember from last year and last session, HB 511 was focused on rural transit delivery to Georgia. The current version, which was a substitute brought forward, basically removes all references to rural transit. So the creating of a new division or a new department is now not part of that. And the main tenets of HB 511 that came through the Senate substitute really focuses on cleanup of the Atlanta Transportation or Atlanta Transit Link Authority board members, election, and some branding and guidelines that were set forth. And so, again, removes all prior references of creating some other transit agency or even how the department administers rural transit funding or programs. So just a few highlights. It cleared up about the ATL board in their 10 districts to stagger the members from April 15th, 2021 to April 15th, 2023. In sort of this initial term so that everybody wasn't become due at one time to be reelected. It also would be required that the elections be held at the Capitol, very similar to you as the State Transportation Board. Elected the same way you are as the board. Maybe a little bit of difference is they have a president of the majority there would constitute a quorum, so a little bit different. And also a current statute requires MARTA to use the ATL logo and brand beginning January 1, 2023. And this substitute bill presented would extend this requirement for any property used for the purpose of transit across the jurisdiction. So it sort of made it broader than just MARTA. And finally, the other part of that was the ATL would be administratively attached to the Department of Transportation, as opposed to being attached to the Georgia Regional Transportation Authority, which is administratively attached to the Department of Community Affairs. So it's sort of getting transportation all linked up. What does that mean? It means that their budget shows up in the same budget area of our budget as transportation related. No different on how the ATL operates or our relationship with them at all, or budget impacts. It's just basically administratively attached to our section of the state budget. So that is there. Also of note in that HB 511 substitute was extending the consumer price index on the excise fee for gas and diesel from 2022 out to 2025. So that's again a favorable thing. So HB 511 can be considered. It had crossed last year. So it wasn't subject to try to get through crossover day. So it can be considered by the Senate at any point when the General Assembly basically returns for operation. So that's sort of the status update of the legislation there. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, the board would be glad to try to field any questions that relates to the legislature at this point.
Any questions from the board to the commissioner? Please stand by too. Don't hang up. We've got one more piece of action after the commissioner's report. Any questions for Commissioner McMurray? Russell, thank you for the report, and we look forward to the legislature coming back at some point.
Indeed.
And certainly understand why they're gone at the moment.
Okay, with that, I'd like Patrick Allen, our State Utilities Engineer, to come up and give his presentation. This is, hey, we're putting Wednesday and Thursday together in one day here. We're being efficient, so
Absolutely.
bear with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely.
All right, thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. As the Commissioner said, I'm Patrick Allen. I'm the State Utilities Engineer. And today I'll be continuing the conversation around the idea of right-of-way use fees as it relates to permitting utilities within the state rights-of-way. And this is largely related to telecommunications that are largely privatized for-profit companies that are unregulated, that utilize right-of-way, obviously for profit to provide connectivity across the state and to other places, other surrounding areas. So years ago, the telephone in itself was indeed a luxury. It wasn't treated as regular utilities such as water, electricity, gas, and the like. So, you know, it even cost money to make a long-distance phone call. So we had to developed a rule to determine how to treat these facilities in the right of way, recognizing that they weren't at the time a true utility. So this rule was developed. This was kind of the tech of the day when this rule was developed in the early 80s. You know, again, Walkman and handheld phone. I don't think many of us have landlines anymore, but that kind of gets to the point of why I'm here to really kind of bring this rule forward and have a conversation about the technology of today and how we indeed need to transition to accommodate that with respect to the board rule 672-11. So fast forward to the 90s, where tech began to change again. Again, there was some deregulation, looking at other opportunities from the traditional telephone companies moving to more cable, video, internet, and cellular communications, and those things were the tech of the day. And the Telecom Act of 1996 was passed, really allowing for states and local municipalities to create a pathway to recoup some of their costs for accommodating these facilities within the right-of-way. So moving forward to today, again, the idea of the connectivity is similar, but the tech has changed. You may have seen many wireless small cells, heard a lot about legislation and different rules being put in place to accommodate what will be known, what is coming in terms of 5G or transition from 4G to 5G technology. And there's a real need to accommodate these things on the right-of-way. And as tech has changed, we've adapted from the old telephone long-distance line to what we have now in terms of a wireless small cell utilizing right-of-way, again, for private companies. But all this boils down to, no matter the media that's used to transfer the data, it all relates to streaming. As I mentioned, nobody really has a landline, or very few people have landlines now, and everything is kind of internet-based, and we stream our music, our video, and everything over the internet. So that connectivity is indeed important, but it just kind of brings to bear why we need to have a conversation about this rule and bring it forward. So the goals for today, is very briefly kind of go through what we've discussed over the last couple of conversations on this subject, and then walk through some of the revisions. I think everybody has a copy of the revised rules, a clean copy, and then also a marked up copy. So if you have questions related to that, it's in front of you. And just for those that are following along, we're on slide 61 currently.
Now departing.
And then lastly, we'll open the rules
Rudy
up
Bowen.
for public comment.
Rudy.
So So as I stated, the primary purpose today is to modernize, have a conversation, open the rules for comment around modernizing Board Rule 672-11, recognizing that the original intent of the board rule and the technology associated with it is indeed obsolete, and we've grown and utilized the parameters of the existing rule to accommodate things as they've changed over the years. Secondly, we want to streamline how we assess fees to these companies. Right now, it's on a per-mile basis. And again, the new rule proposes to kind of streamline and make it easier for us administratively to assess those fees and really tied to our operational costs, which, again, any fees collected are subject to use for funding the utility program. And then lastly, to consolidate, again, video services, telephone, internet, all these technologies are being transmitted over the same media, again, the cables that are within the right-of-way. And we're going to do our part as part of this in ensuring that we serve our purpose in providing connectivity across the state of Georgia and making it easier for utilities to obtain permits and utilize the right-of-way for this connectivity. So the rule, again, you have it in front of you. It has 4 parts. The current rule has definitions, which are largely based on the old long distance and trunk communications cables. It talks about how we are to issue permits. It has a fee schedule, which we're updating, and Section 4 is alternate procedure for assessing fees, which has allowed us over the years to incorporate newer technologies and some non-telecommunications utilities. So the definitions, again, trunk communications and long-distance cable are really obsolete. In today's lingo, we're really talking about broadband and providing that high-speed connectivity, whether it be over the old copper lines, coaxial cable, fiber optics, or even wirelessly. The technology of today is largely fiber optics, and even those wireless antennas are connected via fiber optics or backbone back to a larger macro cell tower, and really what we're talking about is data going from one place to the other. And in that photo on page 64 is actually right outside of our building. That is a 5G antenna located on a traffic signal pole on the corner of West Peachtree and North Avenue. All right, so last time I mentioned a 3-part fee structure that allow for a administrative type fee, an annual recurring fee, and then a way to transition from the old to the new and the way of existing facilities fee. So the first component is that administrative fee. Again, that fee is based on the work that it takes for our team, the utilities team, and the state utilities office and across all 7 districts, and the review of other offices, be it bridge design for a bridge attachment or traffic control for some unique traffic control situations associated with the permit. So again, that administrative fee is intended to cover the cost of us issuing that initial permit. We review between 10 and 12,000 permits every year across the state, resulting in nearly 7,000 approvals, and we do all that work in less than 5 days on most permits. Again, so we're doing really well in providing a definite service to the utility providers as they request to utilize our right-of-way. The next piece, looking at slide 66, will be an annual fee, and this is to cover the recurring costs that are associated with accommodating those utilities on the right-of-way. Utility office is very integral in the project development process. We have to provide 1 of 3 certifications on every single project for funding authorization. Again, the project list continues to grow as we accommodate more utilities in the right-of-way. We have a program that is second to none nationally as far as DOT utility coordination goes. Our utilization of subsurface utility engineering, again, very helpful tool for identifying where utilities are and trying to resolve conflicts as we go through the design process and move into construction, and with the goal of delivering projects on time and getting them constructed in a timely fashion. So again, the annual fee is intended to ensure that our program really takes care of itself from a fee standpoint and to treat these utilities the same as they occupy the right-of-way. And the third component is, as I mentioned, a bridge from the old to the new, an existing facilities fee that would be determined based on the presence of utilities within the right-of-way. Again, transitioning, there are thousands of miles of fiber and many, many devices in the right-of-way. So again, we need to have a bridge from the old to the new as we look at a different methodology in terms of assessing and calculating fees. So collectively, this makes up our new fee structure, as you'll see it in the new proposed 672-11, Section 3 has a new fee schedule relative to the administrative fee, the annual fee, and the existing facilities fee. And again, we have some escalators built in. Again, our goal here is to be technology agnostic and ensure that we've kind of future-proofed the rule as our program grows and as we accommodate more and more utilities within the right-of-way. So with that, in determining what these fees would be, we looked at our operational costs versus our fee collection over several years. And as you can see, it has not kept pace. Our cost of administering the program and our fee collection has not kept pace. So we had to develop something that would keep us solvent, so to speak, to make sure we're supporting the cost of our program. So in summary, the existing facilities fee would be recurring, would be assessed relative to facilities that are in the right-of-way prior to January 2021. The administrative fee will be a one-time fee of $1,000 per permit, and then the annual fee will be recurring at $500 per permit per year and assessed 1 year after that initial permit is obtained. So to briefly recap, as I mentioned, the new rule considers it is tied to our operational cost. It is intended for the purpose of administering the program, for issuing the permits, and for the continued occupancy of the right-of-way by utilities. And it's broken into, it's technology agnostic. It's broken into 3 parts: the existing facilities fee, an administrative fee, and then an annual recurring fee. So with that, I guess I will.
All right. Yeah, thank you.
Any questions, or I guess I'll ask Matt to come up and officially to open the room. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman,
Any questions? Ms. Key has a question. Matt, if you need to come up and help, whatever.
no,
All right.
this is, Patrick, we charge a permit fee today, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
What is that fee today?
The fee today, it is a per mile fee,
Okay.
largely. So depending on the locale and the ADT, it ranges from $1,000 per mile up to $5,000 per mile for telecommunications.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions from the board? Hearing none, I'm going to need, Matt, do you need to add anything? For y'all at home, Matt is approaching.
Yes, I just wanted to talk real quick about the process and what we're asking for.
Okay.
So the action of the board today would be to actually open the rules up for a public comment period of 30 days. So what happens is we'll open up, we advertise them, people can give their comments for the next 30 days. Then we would bring them back to the board to address those comments, talk about it, and then they would actually get approved at that point. From a timing standpoint, our next board meeting is actually is going to be 28 days from now, so it'll actually be in the May meeting that we talk about the substantive parts of this. And again, the action today is just to open the rules up for
Right.
public comment.
Right. All right. Any questions of our attorney? No. Commissioner?
Yeah, Patrick, you come back up, please. You're not done. You thought you were. Remind the board again, you sort of went by, the last time these were updated was what year, these rules?
Last time these rules were updated was, I think it was 1984, 85 in there. Yeah, so it's been a very, very long time.
Ms. Key had a very good point there is, yes, there is a fee now, and the difference, as Patrick has articulated through his presentation, was we're just agnostic to however data's traveling now. And the way that was written in back in the early 80s was very specific by telephone over copper wire, and things that we have today weren't even imagined in the early 80s. So that's why we call it modernization. It really gets to and to be equitable to all permittees, not depending on who or what type of cable data may be flowing over. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
All right. with the closing that out, I'm assuming there's no other questions. I need approval from the board to open Rule 672 for 30-day comment. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
State who made the motion again.
Jeff Lewis.
All right, Robert Brown, motion, second.
Second.
Is that Ann?
Yes.
All right, second by Ann Purcell. All in favor say aye. Opposed likewise. If not, the board has approved it and the motion passes. With that, I'm going to close out very quickly. I'm sorry we ran over time. Thank you for all the board members who, under these unusual circumstances, thank you for you calling in. The fact we had such an overwhelming number of people on the phone. And Stacy, thank you for being here. And to everyone, God bless, stay safe, stay healthy, and we will stay tuned. And to your emails, we'll let you know as we move towards the next board meeting. Thank you for your attendance.
Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead.
Chairman, point of privilege from Don.
You got it. Go ahead.
I'd just like to comment on the IT program with the teleworking that our employees are doing right now and with the outstanding job that they have performed in the IT department to make this available and to give us this type of methods in which we can discuss our business for the state and handle it in a proper manner.
Thank you, absolutely. I'll second that, Don. Thank you for those comments. I wish y'all could be here to see this picture of the board right now. This is so unusual in this room, and everybody is practicing social distancing. Everybody has a pretty wide swath from people. And so anyway, I wish everybody could see it. I'm sure we'll have photos if you're not looking at it live. Any other comments from the board? If not, we stand adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now departing. Now departing.
Jeff Lewis.